Title is Being a Property Manager is Easy. It's like riding a bike, except the bike is on fire. You're on fire. Everything is on fire. I was like, what?
It's like that Jim Gaffigan quote. I have 4 children, right? He says, what's it like to have 4 kids? Well, picture yourself with 3 kids and you're drowning. And then someone throws you a baby.
Welcome everybody to KarmaCast episode 6. Today I'm talking with my man, Rob Caldwell. Today we're going to get into property management, which is a real important aspect of investing. We've made all our thank God there's mismanagers in this world. If there were no mismanagers, we would make no money because we've made all our money buying properties that were mismanaged and working on them. And trying to manage them to the best of our ability. And so today we're here with my man, Rob Caldwell from Rentwell.
That's right.
Founder of Rentwell.
That's right.
Rentwell what? Property management?
Rentwell Property Management. Rentwell Lease, Manage, Maintain.
Right.
Yeah.
Professional property management.
I like to think so. Try to be.
Do you love property management, Rob?
Wow. Do I love it? It's definitely a bit of a means to an end. I love the challenge of it.
Right.
You just got me thinking people say you find your deals on the 3 Ds: death, disease, divorce. And the 4th D now would be deadbeat property managers that aren't doing their job.
Mismanagers, that's what we
right.
do, yeah.
And not just the professional firms, but it could be the ones that you hire or the ones that you do it yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's right. I agree with you. It's not for everybody. Let me put it that way.
Right.
I think I'm pretty successful at it and I have a good team, but managing real estate isn't for everybody.
Yeah, it's a tough deal. And I'm glad it is a tough deal because it was easy, everybody be in it, and then we would have a harder time trying to make our money, right?
I think Warren Buffett said, I'd love to own all these single family houses, but how do you manage them?
Right.
Technology's helping.
Big time.
Technology's helping, even the FaceTime, that level, the software. But it comes down to people, right? Because if you're managing real estate, if you hire a manager, you're going to be at how well are they with their team and what's the training and the experience of their team and how do you match that to what they're making versus what they're charging. Mm-hmm. And in your scenario, from what I understand about your group, your assets, you own and you manage together. So it's interesting. We're in the same space, but
you're coming into that space different in the soon future. Well, you already kind of, but we're going to retract a little bit, and I just want to get into how did you get into property management?
Wow. So it was scarcity. Straight. It was okay. It's 2008. The Great Recession's upon us. I took a pay cut
from
a retail chain that I was the director of franchising for.
Okay.
And I would go to all these franchise shows, and I wanted to then own my own business. I was a little tired of working for somebody else.
How old were you?
I was 27 years old.
Okay, young guy.
My first daughter was born in 2009. So we were, getting ready for that. She was born in January. Great Recession was coming or was there. So I wanted a business that did well regardless of the economy. I wanted a business that couldn't be completely outsourced, okay, and that was profitable, that would make a certain percentage of EBITDA, and then I wanted to get out. I was in the retail space, so I worked for almost 10 years for a drive-through grocery chain. I was CEO in training at the age of 19 years old.
Wow.
So I was still in college, I had a full-time job, and I was at Penn State University studying finance and real estate. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole nother story. I became enamored with this idea of this drive-through grocery store, which is called...
You were studying finance and real estate at Penn State?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Studying finance and real estate. I had read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Wow.
Prior to that, before that, I read books like Think and Grow Rich and some other of the mindset stuff that we have that common interest in.
Right.
And my plan was, okay, this is going to be great. I'm going to own the land and then have these businesses on it, these drive-through grocery stores.
Okay.
That unfortunately didn't work. Okay. For what the land cost and what the construction was. We tried everything that you can imagine to get the Swiss Farms brand to work and to get it to take off.
Oh, I remember Swiss Farms. Yeah.
Okay. So that I saw the writing on the wall there, and I said, okay, I'm going to need to like really like that book, Who Moved My Cheese?
Yes.
Okay. And like, I had to go get my running shoes on and figure out what I was going to do.
Right.
I had bought real estate when I was in my early 20s. Once I graduated, I had that full-time career already lined up at Swiss Farms. They were still giving the low doc loans, and I bought 3 investment properties in the borough of Westchester.
Nice.
And I did pretty well with those. I'd fix them up on weekends and then do my Swiss Farms like 18 hours a day. Outside of there, I worked a lot.
Really?
And I met my wife at Swiss Farms. But then we realized that we needed to. It was time for a change. So I would be at these franchise shows, and you could buy a property management franchise. Like literally, you could buy a business in a box. And I spent a year and a half traveling around to meet with all the different franchises. Mm-hmm. And I either liked the franchise, but I didn't like the business behind it, or I liked the business behind it, but I didn't like the leaders in front of it. So we ended up putting an ad on Craigslist for a broker for hire. I met this man. The company at that time was called Your Local Leasing Company. And what he specialized in, see, he was a burned out property manager. He didn't want to manage any real estate. He just wanted to place tenants. So hence the name, Your Local Leasing Company, which became incredibly confusing down the road. Hence we switched to Rentwell, and this is our tag of freedom.
So you bought the franchise, or you bought into the franchise?
Yeah, I partnered with him. My wife was the first employee. I was still working at Swiss Farms. He was our broker of record. And then a few years later, I had to, once I came on board, we were oil and water. So we just didn't agree on anything.
Right.
And then I bought him out, leased an office space, went
It was
full-time.
a franchise still then?
It was not a franchise. We created it into a licensed company.
Okay.
So we've since licensed that. But I was close to signing some franchise agreements.
Okay.
To be with any one of the big franchise players. I'm glad I didn't, because my vision was a lot bigger than one office and one franchise.
Okay.
But Pankaj, that's how I got into the space. So it checked a lot of the boxes, but a lot of those boxes were really driven. Looking back, it was really driven by fear of financial security or lack thereof. Mm-hmm. And I didn't like getting a pay cut. Like I worked really hard for that company, and I walked in there one day and I took a pay cut, and that was somebody else in control of my destiny at that time. So
the pay cut was because of the recession, because of the change in the economy?
And then also we weren't going to be able to grow at the pace we needed to grow.
Right.
So, and it's not like I was, I wasn't 6 figures at that point in time. I mean, so we're not talking I was making uber money. I was a little bit above paycheck to paycheck with where I was, but it was exactly what I needed at that point in time. Because without that jolt, I'm not sure what would have happened.
So getting into the property management stuff, what did you learn out the door?
Okay, so I hired an E-Myth coach. Have you ever familiar
Michael
with that book called E-Myth?
Michael Gerber? I heard him speak.
So I hired a coach of his that I had because I'll tell you what, when I left Swiss Farms, that W-2, our business was maybe a year or two in business, and it was struggling. We would add on some new accounts, and then we would fall backwards. Like we weren't getting traction, but I knew that there was life in this business. So the hiring of the E-Myth coach helped me to create a vision for the company or strategic plan, and then have a organizational structure. And then what does it look like today? What is it going to look like tomorrow? What's it going to look like in 3 years? Like, what's the vision for this business? So it was absolutely to place tenants, collect rent, and then coordinate all aspects.
So the E-Myth guy, wasn't that also about creating a system?
Very much about systems and processes, and you manage the system, but you lead your people. It was a great system. Like that in and of itself was a system. There's 80 some modules that you go through with the coach. I'd have a call every other week. I'd have my homework to do.
So you had a job on top of a job.
Sure. Don't we all at some point? Yeah, that was the working on the business.
Right.
And Where in hindsight is I didn't really know property management. I knew franchising, I knew operations from my Swiss Farms days, right. But managing your own rental property, and one that I had a small portfolio in Westchester where people weren't late, there wasn't a whole lot of maintenance, or if there was, I could run over there and meet with a handyman. Right. It wasn't what I was ready for to grow an actual property management firm. It took years to figure out that space and how to do it. And what do you charge? And what do your people do? What are their roles and responsibilities? Who do they report to? What softwares do you run on? What are the metrics that you track for your management company that are going to put you in a close alignment with your investors? So it's been quite a journey. Mm-hmm. It's been almost 10 years.
So you were doing the property management too from the beginning? Or you had other people doing the property management? You were just overseeing the business. You were working on the business.
So here's what I did. I went out and I had conversations with my parents, and I had conversations with my aunt, and I house hacked. So I lived in Westchester, mm-hmm. and I would rent out the other rooms in my house. This is before kids, BC. Right. So I didn't need to make a lot of money because my mortgage was covered and most of my food expenses were covered. So I began hiring people right away. So I didn't actually take any money out of the business for about 3 years.
Okay.
And that allowed me to hire a staff because it is a grueling business. A lot of people that get into this space, they don't get over 100 units that they're managing it themselves, and they burn themselves out. And then the next tier is managing about 400 rental units in an office. Most property managers don't get past 400 units. So it's a whole nother level when you grow to above that 400 to 600 unit mark.
So you've been doing this for what, 12 years? How many years total now?
Yeah. So I jumped on board full time in 2012 in January.
Okay.
I still remember my hand shaking, putting in my resignation. And the company was formed in 2009. We began managing properties in February of 2010.
And then you've grown the portfolio. How many properties do you manage?
So the largest that we were was 6 individual offices with over 2,500 individual rental units.
2,500.
Yeah. So that could be a 30-unit building. We would count that as 30 units, one property.
Right.
We were in Florida, which we later sold, and the investors got their money back on that one. And then we are in Maryland, Delaware, and both sides of Pennsylvania. We're in Pittsburgh and we're in the Delaware Valley, the Philadelphia region here.
Yeah.
Right. About 2,000 doors. We estimate somewhere around $250 million worth of real estate. We manage a lot of homes, what we call accidental landlords. Somebody who couldn't sell their home and they lose too much money if they did.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Or it's their first home that they bought, or they lived in it and now they want to turn it into a rental, but they don't want to be bothered with the tenants and the toilets and the headaches and the accounting and all that. So we have hundreds of clients with one rental property, and then we have other clients that have 10 rentals with us, 20 rentals with us, 30 rentals with us. So that's how the portfolio is spread out.
And so logistically, you've got properties all over that you manage. That's quite a logistical challenge.
No, we're a logistics company.
Right.
Like you hit the nail on the head. Like that's really what the business is. It's a logistics company.
Right.
And to figure out those systems, that's why you have more units than we do. You have fewer addresses to manage.
Right.
So that means you have fewer utility bills to come in. That means your property manager, right? They can get on the elevator and go see how that unit turn's doing. I have some team members that have vehicles, Rentwell vehicles, and logistically we schedule their day to be as efficient as possible. And they drive around, they check on construction jobs. They meet with townships, they wait for utilities or Section 8 inspectors, and then we have other staff that are in the office coordinating maintenance, and then yet other staff that are renting properties, collecting rent, handling evictions, handling the accounting and reporting. So it's... You
ever get overwhelmed with it all? Just looking at your own operation and does it feel at times just overwhelming? I've definitely gone through seasons in the business. Yeah,
absolutely. Going through seasons in the business, there are. I'm fortunate to have some long-term team members that I trust, and and that we have a mutual respect, and they handle their items, I handle my items, and then we connect on a semi-regular basis to keep the finger on the pulse. That's the biggest challenge. If somebody would ever to ask me, well, how's your management company running?
Right.
Well, let me get real with you. Like, how's it really running? I can tell you what our revenues are. I can tell you what our expenses are. I can tell you what our days on market are. I can tell you what some key metrics are, like economic occupancy is a key metric.
Right.
But it's, as a restaurant says, like, you're only as good as the last meal that you serve. I mean, that's how I feel. Like, we're only as good as the last tenant that we place, the last paperwork that we file for an eviction. How good are we going to vet our contractors or hire our own handyman? So it's definitely a business that you cannot rest on your laurels.
Right. Definitely. It's a busy business.
It's a busy.
Technology, you had mentioned, technology really helps. What are you using technology-wise? Wow. Just a couple of
Where
things.
aren't we using it, right?
Right. But like, for example, like I know you use the same accounting
Sure.
software that I use, the property management software. We use the same. We're both using Appfolio.
That's right. And what are they doing? I mean,
we got to get them to sponsor our podcast.
Why not? You should.
Where's my Appfolio cup?
Do it.
But
I mean, they're figuring out artificial intelligence to automatically respond to renters' increase. The leasing is some of the biggest challenges.
I had him at our office.
Right.
The founder of Dynasty. What's his name? Elliot Burris.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's demonstrated the whole Lisa. Lisa is artificial intelligence. Like they have this virtual leasing assistant.
Sure.
Who texts the people and sets up your tours and all that.
Right. So that's the leasing side. Maintenance side, you could set up your home as a full smart home. But you also
use another company for like just for the tours. Like they're able to access what.
Yep. So we use Showmojo.
Okay. How's that work?
There's one called Tenant Turner. That works wonderfully. These systems are pretty advanced, so you need to like figure them out. You need to get them set up properly in the right lock boxes. We use our own key system where the keys can't be duplicated.
So that's for like people can go and tour the house by themselves. They can tour the rental property by themselves once they've been properly vetted.
Yep. Look at the driver's license. So we have a full-time team member who is reviewing driver's license for those properties that are vacant and rent ready and on our locks. So they can do self-tours.
So a prospective tenant shows up at the property.
Yep.
And there's like a key box there with
there's a key box there, or now the next generation is there are no key boxes. There's a push button.
Right.
Right. Like a vacation rental, very common in the Airbnb space.
So there's a combination.
Mm-hmm. So there'd be a combination. So they gain access through their phone. The phone is the GPS tracker, so and all that is synced. Okay, so we know it's them with their phone at the property, and then there's a narrow window of time where they can get in and get out, and then they have to give a survey as to how that went. Did they lock up? What's their likelihood to rent the property? And we have somebody whose role is at Rentwell to follow up with them, and then
that frees up a whole lot of time. Is somebody going there, just waiting for the person? Does the person show up? They don't show up. Walking them through the property and then coming back to the office or going back to the next one, and they're able to just show up at a time designated. And thank God for technology. Wow, that's amazing.
It's been around for almost 10 years. I mean, before landlords would do it with. I met this one mortgage broker, and he had 100 rentals in Manayunk, and for years that's what he would do. He would just, I think for some, he would even leave the door unlocked, and because you can. If you think of the logistics,
what about the sales presentation, so to speak, or like walking them through the thing, and kind of.
Yep.
What about you? Think you're missing on that experience then, or?
So that's both ways,
right?
Because sometimes they don't want you there. They want to be on their phone, FaceTime with their mom about how excited they are about this new apartment. They want to take their time to go through it. They don't want you. Scale of 1 to 10, how well does this apartment suit your needs? Like,
showing them, here's a closet. Yeah, of course it's a closet.
That's a
what
closet.
Else is it?
So it works when it's vacant and rent ready.
Okay.
So we still have showing agents. Like, we're still physically showing properties, but what's nice is, we have some properties where there'll be 100 people through there. That's a lot. Like, I'm talking about for one house. I'm talking about we filtered 1,000 leads to let 100 people through. And then we can pick from 10 applications that came in an order without violating anything for fair housing, right? And then get the one that meets the owner's needs.
You can collect 10 applications on one property, and then once you select a certain tenant, then you'll ask them for the deposit?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yep. You get a deposit, then you draft a lease, then you send the lease out. Lease is signed online.
Yeah. What are you finding the most effective ways of advertising the units?
So Facebook Marketplace gets a tremendous amount of traffic, but we haven't seen as many conversions on there. So Zillow is the big player in our area right now for rentals. They haven't started charging, but it's going to be coming. They started charging. I think it was in our Florida market where we were getting.
So do you put them directly on Zillow, or do you put them through the Appfolio and it just posts on Zillow?
So our Appfolio will talk to the Showmojo, and then Showmojo will syndicate out.
Okay.
It's a little complicated if we're going to use a website called Go Section 8 for our Section 8 listings.
Okay.
But
so you cover the whole gamut of like A class, B class, C class, all the different classes, housing.
Yes. And it's 95% residential.
Yeah.
We have some mixed use, right, where the commercial on the first floor. And then we do a really good job in screening the landlords that want to work with us and us that want to work with them to make sure that we have the right vision for their asset, because we're in the middle of it. As a property manager, we're in the middle of the landlord. We're in between the landlord, the tenant, the vendor, the community. So that's where the biggest learning curve is when you get into the space. If you get, for us, if we would get 5 new owner leads in a month or in a week, any period of time, I wanted 5 or 6 clients. I want to sign them all up.
Yeah.
No, it's matching up with the right clients to work with and helping them build wealth in real estate and creating financial freedom.
What would you say in property management in general, what's the biggest challenge?
People.
Exactly. I agree.
Communication, people, knowing what's real, knowing what's not real, maintenance. And then you get into those logistics. The bigger the building, the easier the maintenance, the easier the logistics going to be. Probably the same people challenges.
One thing I never thought of before, but when I went to the Appfolio conference last year, I was meeting a lot of people like yourself that are in the property management business. And I realized that they have, in some ways, you guys have double the workload, because we're just dealing with the tenant, but you're dealing with the tenant and the owner.
Yes.
So it's like you got 2 parties to satisfy. You got to satisfy the tenant, but you also got to satisfy the owner.
Yes. The turnover in the business is high because of that, unfortunately. You can have somebody who's very well trained, who knows their role inside and out. And if too much is put onto them and there's not enough fun going on in the office and there's not enough vacation time or the bonuses aren't there, they can find another industry. We've had some people leave over the years, and some have gone to quote unquote competitors. Maybe the grass is greener on the other side, but others have just gotten out of the space completely. Pankaj, we last year we had a maintenance summit, so we brought in all 4 of our market centers. So we had about a dozen individuals there that do like maintenance coordination, okay, and an oversight of this maintenance. And we asked them how many of them were interested in owning real estate. Not many were, because the challenge with the space is if you are a property manager, and let's say you're responsible for 300 individual units, you're probably going to have something going wrong, right, in 10 of them, 15 of them, 20 of them. So the challenge there is those that work in the property management space. What I thought you were going to say is that from that conference, right, there's a lot of property managers that don't own investment properties. And we got into the space in a way being one of those firms, and now we've been able to transform our company into better working with real estate investors, if that makes sense.
So I'm starting to focus on property management more so in our business, because I saw that that's going to be one of the keys, especially in these changing times that I feel are coming up, is to tighten our property management and get it really strong and solid. And so I was looking at some books to read on property management. I came across this book. Being a Property Management, this is the title of a book, actually.
It's a real book?
Yeah, I saw this on Amazon. I don't know, it doesn't say the author here, but just look at the title. It says, being a property manager is easy. It's like riding a bike. Except the bike is on fire. You're on fire. Everything is on fire. I was like, what?
It's like that Jim Gaffigan quote. I have 4 children, right? He says, what's it like to have 4 kids? Well, picture yourself with 3 kids and you're drowning. And then someone throws you a baby. Yeah, can I see this?
Yeah.
Being a property manager is like, it's easy. It's riding a bike. Your bike's on fire, you're on fire, everything's on fire. Oh my gosh. That's spoken with somebody that has some experience.
That doesn't sound like a business anybody wants to get into.
I had a very close mentor saying, Rob, you're crazy. You're just going to manage the stuff that nobody wants to manage. Some of that's true, but not all the asset classes that we manage. It's not that people don't want to manage it. It's that they have to hire somebody to manage it.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. Like for me, I know I'm like you. I don't know if this is the case for you or not, but I'll just speak for myself. I had to manage properties when I was very young, like in my 20s. And I just did it because I didn't have a choice, really. I was kind of thrown into it. And I never really thought about it until later on in life. And I realized, like, this is not what I like to do. Like being a property manager per se, to deal with all the tenants. And, you know, I'm a person like you. I think like one of the things about us that's kind of, I like to have change. I can't take like the same thing day in, day out. And it kind of gets monotonous to manage a property.
Right.
But there's certain people that they love it. Like that's their thing. Like it just fits them so well and certain personalities. So I realized like I can be an owner operator and I can do big picture stuff, but I don't have to be like the day to day, you know, I couldn't do it with, you know, having 2,000 units. I couldn't like be able to manage and know everything with each tenant. And my managers create a buffer between me and my tenants, you know, but property management is where the money is made. A lot of people are now investors, you know, and they're coming in, they're buying real estate and they're being told to just get a property management company to invest it. And I know a lot of people, I mean, I've seen it over the years, a lot of people are sunk because of the property management company. You know, because the property management company just doesn't, you know, and they rest on their laurels and, you know, they let the people manage it and, you know, they have to end up selling the property all because of the property management company.
If I was going to write a book, it would be How to Manage Your Manager.
Okay.
You would be surprised. Some landlords don't want to show their operating budget with you. Well, why not? Tell me what you think the expectations are for this property.
So what are some keys? What are some keys of you would say of managing the manager?
Yeah, I would.
What's important?
Oh gosh, where to start? So to manage the manager,
top three.
Top 3.
I'll cut it down for you.
Okay. Agree on a budget ahead of time, subject to change, because especially if you have
you never know what's going to come up.
Rental unit, you have one single family house, you're either occupied or vacant. They're either paying rent or they're not. Right. So it's very black and white in that regard, but have a discussion around the finances of the property, and that property manager should be talking to them about reserves for unit turns, daily and seasonal maintenance, okay, and then CapEx. Those 3 things. That should be a discussion around what is this building going to
Do you do that
require.
to the new prospective owners that want to give you their properties?
We don't have a budget for every property.
But
no,
is something you discuss?
But we have discussions around when we're working with a new owner around those items, or when we are sending out to our off-market list around a property, we put estimates in for those like the 3 the maintenance items.
What else would you say? What else would you say is important?
Okay, then it's what happens if the rent's not going to get paid? How is this communication going to work? So what happens in a third-party property management company, rent's due on the 1st, late in the 5th. In Pennsylvania, it's a 10-day, cure or quit period. We like to wait 10 days. Maybe like isn't the right word, right? But we wait 10 days in order to start a landlord-tenant case. If every one of our clients who was calling for the resident that paid late is calling to ask the property manager for an update, that's time that they don't have to go get the update from the tenant.
Yeah.
So that is, number 2, like what are the expectations around the rent collection and the communication regarding the rent collection, And then the third one is going to be back to that maintenance. What's the threshold to have of when we can go handle maintenance on our own up to a certain dollar amount,
right?
Versus when do we need to get on the phone with you, Mr. Owner,
and make sure,
because if that threshold's too low, it's going to cost more to get the actual maintenance done. So it's knowing your budget going in, it's communication, especially around rent collection, and it's a third communication around maintenance. If you can be on the same page with your manager and they're executing upon that, let them execute. Let them do their job. If they tell you that we should file on this person for an eviction, don't get involved and say, well, let's wait another week.
Right.
Don't like lead your manager, because that the book was going to have a little twist. Like, you shouldn't have to be managing your manager. So
you've also moved from just being a manager and property management company to actually closing on a multifamily.
That's right.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
A few months ago.
About a few months ago, we bought a 5-unit building, and we bought a 13-unit building.
Wow!
Right down the street here, actually.
Yeah. Good neighborhood.
I think so.
Yeah, we have an episode on it.
That's right.
I think we have an episode where we go there while you guys are Rentwell rehab.
That's right. They may not recognize me. I had the goatee back then. I hope
and you had a hat on that day. It was raining that day.
So I've cleaned myself up. Now we're working with the space planner. We are we've done all of our phase 1 renovations. Now we're working on electric, plumbing, HVAC. So those are big. You've heard that acronym that Bigger Pockets made famous.
So you have the 5 and 13?
We have a 5-unit, a 13-unit, and then another partnership down the street has a 9-unit. So on Main Street, and within those 3 blocks, in Royersford, PA, Montgomery County, there's 30 doors there.
Wow.
And then there's another investor with about 30 doors, and then one other investor with about 30 doors. There's going to be a bar and restaurant coming in about 10 years ago, I asked a realtor in Westchester, said, how can you tell when a town is getting ready to hit that turning point? And she said, when an Iron Hill brewery comes to town, buy as much as you can. And that happened in Westchester, happened in Phoenixville. I don't believe it's an Iron Hill brewery, but it's something along those lines that brings the evening crowd, and then that allows the other shops to stay open later. It allows the coffee shops to stay open later and start selling the ice cream, and it brings that infrastructure there. So there'll be like a brewery, restaurant. There's already some breakfast spots. Royersford's small. You're talking 4,000 people. So buildings are 100 years old. We're doing gut rehabs to each of the apartments as we go through, and having a lot of fun with it. I'm learning a lot, and it's only going to strengthen our property management company. Actually,
so the walls in those buildings are what? They're like cement? I mean, not cement.
A lot of plaster.
What's it, plaster, right?
A lot of plaster.
That makes things a little more challenging, right? As far as remodeling, or no?
For right now, all I really know is those types of buildings. Everything I own is about 100 years old. In Westchester as well.
Oh, wow.
Those were older homes there. So you go through some more saw blades, especially when you're going through. They're not 2x4s. They're like 3x2s in those walls. They're pretty big.
Right.
So we'll have the exposed brick, new electric, laundry in the apartments.
So you syndicated this deal?
It was a joint venture, I would call it.
Okay.
So we didn't need to go through the whole SEC to make it a security. We have investors that so my partner and I secured the asset. So we found the asset, we put down the down payment,
right,
which was live. So we bought these buildings without any financing contingency.
Right. And
then we raised through partners, we raised the down payment. They stay in as equity.
Right.
Okay. And then my business partner and I have the majority of the equity in the asset.
So can I ask you this, like,
sure.
How did you get the mindset to do all this? Like set up the joint venture and everything like that? What did you go to somewhere and hear something, or did you been planning this all along, or where did the idea come from?
Okay. Well, all of my Rentwell, there's the 4 operations. They're all with partners. So I was familiar with partners, and then the actual, like, I didn't come up with this logo, this freedom. Like, we modified it, right, for Rentwell, because we love the word freedom, and we employ some veterans, and we're after financial freedom. So this came from Michael Blanc, where he sells his own version of this at his conferences, and him and some other individuals teach real estate syndication. So I guess it was my degree in finance and then just understanding how it works. It's a pretty simple model. Your father started talking about that model as to he called his growth a little slower, right? I thought that was funny. Like 90,000 to 350 million was slower than, but that's true in relation to like a Morgan Properties that is syndicating on these larger ones. So how that just came about. I didn't have a couple extra $100,000 laying around to buy the buildings. I do now because I ended up refinancing my Westchester portfolio versus selling it. Mm-hmm. So I did some cash out refis, and then we worked with a local bank who believed in us, believed in the town, believed in the building. They provided 80% of the initial purchase price and then 100% of the construction financing. Wow. So now we're in the period of these construction draws. So we've used our own cash to get the renovation started. Mm-hmm. We've changed the plans for each of the buildings. So we've expanded the scope of work. And now we're going to be going back to the bank and saying, hey, do we need to get another appraisal here? Or can we just move around how we're going to spend some of this money? Because I've expanded what we're doing to these projects.
Well, you're at the right place at the right time, for sure. I think you're definitely at the right place at the right time. So the last few minutes, I want to just talk about freedom. Talk about this idea of freedom, talk about the quality of freedom, talk about the importance of freedom and what that means to you.
Well, when you say that, a peace of mind comes up, Pankaj. That is my true measure of freedom. Right. It's how am I with myself? Right. And what is my own peace of mind? What's my own measure of serenity? And that's something that has been the biggest part of my journey over these years, is not so much finding that, because it's always there. It's letting everything else go so you can realize it. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Financial freedom is certainly important, and I've been on both sides of that. Right. I think Anthony Robbins says tragedy is when you get to where you thought you would be and be happy, but you're not happy. I felt like I was kind of there. Like I got to where I thought I should be happy. Right. But I wasn't happy, and that is a very empty feeling. Mm-hmm. So I light up going into these properties now. I light up. We just did a tour with most of the Rentwell team that was able to break free for an afternoon to tour these buildings and to meet the on-site staff now, because that staff will then help out all of our other rentals in the area, the scattered site, single and small multifamily. But freedom to me is up here and in here. Right. That's the most important form of freedom to me. We get to take our trip soon.
Yeah. What's helped you attain that freedom in life? What do you think is helping you, or what do you do on a daily basis that helps you to maintain that level of freedom that you just talked about?
You've had one of the biggest impacts on that from the book that you recommended and just the conversations we've had. And that was Michael Singer. Right, okay. Untethered Soul and Surrender Experiment. First thing I do when I wake up is I put my knees on the ground and I thank my higher power, God, Jesus, saints and sages, Archangel Michael. Like I go through and I thank, because I don't know how I'm here. I don't know what this whole thing's about. Right. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have a good mind and my health and a family and these eyes to see, these ears to hear. That's one of the first things I do. And then I generally take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes and just breathe. And I'm just counting from 1 to 10 and I'm just breathing. Those are key practices in yoga.
Okay. You just became a yoga teacher?
I am I'm getting really close.
Oh, okay.
I have about 20 hours left of certain instructors that I need to study under, and then retake an anatomy test. And then
I used to always fall asleep on anatomy. That was the one part. That was the only part that I fall asleep on, which later on I wish I paid more attention. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll let you borrow my notebook when I'm done, or the workbook. You can refresh on your anatomy.
I fell asleep then. I definitely won't look at it now, probably.
So yoga's a big part. Like I'll know if I haven't done yoga in too long. Mm-hmm. So yoga's a big part. And my measure of success right now is when I get home, how am I showing up with my wife and my children? That's my measure. Can I put the phone down? Can I quiet the mind that wants to go through the to-do list and set up tomorrow or set up the next day or work on the plans or move this around? Can I be there with them? Because I say that I'm doing this financial freedom and all this for my children and generational wealth. And a lot of that is true. But the most important thing for me is to be there with them.
Right. And to give them experiences.
Yeah, love is spelled time.
Right. So going back to just Singer for a moment, because we're going to see him next week, right? We're going to go see him.
That's right.
At this, what's it called? The
Temple of the Universe outside of Gainesville, Florida.
Florida, right? So I'm looking forward to that trip. I just read the one book, The Surrender Experiment, and I haven't, I'm not. I mean, I used to have a huge, extensive library, but I haven't read books in years. And then all of a sudden, that was one book that I picked up, and it was a real. Now I'm at a point where I want like real life experience. I like to listen to people's experiences, and I don't want to hear just jargon. I want to hear experience. And this person just shared his experience in that book.
Yes,
and that's why that was one of the reasons why I couldn't put it down. And his experiences. Yes. Were so incredible with this one thing of surrendering.
That's right.
The experiment of surrendering and how he grew his business, whatever business he was in, it was constantly growing. But the coolest thing that I learned or got from that book was that when his business was ready to go to the next level, the people would just show up.
Bingo. Isn't that amazing?
They would just show up. And then whatever the next level of the business, again, the right people would just show up.
Yes.
So the book and his life reinforced for me the whole thing about and his whole focus was his own meditation practice. And so it reinforced for me that if you work on yourself, if you maintain your practice, if you maintain your connection to source, whatever that is for you, your conscious contact, and you work and you steadily practice that on a day in, day out basis, your frequency, your vibrational frequency, your consciousness, whatever you want to call it, it will continue to expand. And as you expand, you will draw onto you all that you need when you need it. You become the force that draws, because he was that force. And it was through him not managing everything from his head and his personality self, but willing to surrender the personality self and the head self to the greater self and to the life itself. Amen. Amen. I think we'll end on that note.
That's it right there.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking time out, coming, talking about property management, the bike being on fire, you're on fire, everything's on fire.
Everything's on fire. Hopefully not the building.
And,
but look, it's not a reason not to do
it. We put out fires.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
It's going to be okay.
We put out fires. We get paid to put out the fire, right? So, hey, thank you again for tuning into episode of KarmaCast. And, if you haven't already, check us out on iTunes, Stitcher. What other platforms are we on, Kyle? Spotify. Leave a review. And I got some amazing people showing up from the local area, man. Heavy hitters right here in Philadelphia. We're going to have Corey Longberger from Rittenhouse Realty, amazing brokerage. They've sold so much real estate, and I just watched this guy skyrocket. I bought a deal off of him 10 years ago, 60 unit here in Pottstown, and he was with CBRE at the time, and then he and somebody else started a Rittenhouse Realty, and they've grown done amazing things over the years. And I have another gentleman with over 7,000 units coming, and is going to share his experience with us. So I'm just like ecstatic with the people that are coming together, and we do it right here. We do it live. It's Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. It's Philadelphia freedom, right? So thank you for tuning in. Take care. God bless.